Welcome back, everyone, to the Disaster Tough podcast, where we share insights into the big plays and right calls of leadership. We dive deep into the stories, lessons learned, and ideas that will help you in the field. Let's go. Welcome back to the Disaster Tough podcast. I'm your host, John Scardina. I'm very excited for this week's episode. I get to have Andrew Donawa back on the show. He's a great friend of mine. We met years ago. If you've listened to that podcast, or maybe a podcast at this time, he's also, I think, been on other shows on our network too. He's just a great guy. His background has EMT paramedic, and then he got into emergency management. He was in Nebraska and Iowa, I think South Carolina, and now he's at Pasco County Sheriff's Office. He is a great resource. He's taking the world by storm. Yes, that is a hurricane pun. I am a dad. And with that, Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, John. It's good to see you. And it's North Carolina.
North Carolina. Gosh. Hey, this is why we have editing. North Carolina. Let's see if I fix that. But have you been on EM Weekly? I think you have been on EM Weekly.
I've been on EM Weekly.
Let's see. You've been on EM Weekly. Have you been on Live Fire Layout?
No, I was supposed to get on Live Fire Layout. But
all right. Prescott, he got promoted as a fire chief and had a third kid, and then he went quiet for a while. Let's see. Preparedness Works. Have you been on Preparedness Works?
Nope, not Preparedness Works.
All right. So we got to get you on that one, and Disaster Zone that came under our umbrella. But either way, I've now known you for several years. I've seen you at trainings. You've done speaking engagement. You've done lots of cool stuff. And now you float this really cool line between law enforcement and emergency management, which, let's be real, I think most emergency managers don't really get. And you have figured out how to integrate really, really well. And I think you're able to wear multiple hats. And so just like kind of setting that stage, do you agree with that assessment that it doesn't, like EM and law enforcement don't always coalesce very well? And then how have you figured out how to just run hard?
Yeah. So I definitely agree with that statement, right? So it is a law enforcement and emergency management. You have to be very strategic in what's going on. And I don't want to call it a stigma, but there's been like a stigma through law enforcement and emergency management and how that's going to just mesh together smoothly. The hard part is that law enforcement is a very close-knit group of people, just like any other first responder group. But you see law enforcement officers working day in and day out by themselves, typically. They have their squads, but they're not always together. So to try to integrate emergency management into that is a totally different outcome, right? It's not just like what you would see on the fire service or the EMS service side of the house, because they're used to seeing those emergency managers come out on those major critical incidents. So I would say that one of the things that I've done here since being at the sheriff's office to integrate that is to show up and be present and ask them what resources they need and continue to show up, right?
Yeah.
Now it's one of those things where I have those lieutenants, those sergeants, the captains, maybe even the majors calling me saying, hey, this is what we have going on. I don't know if you need to be out here or if this is something that you can support us with, but this is what we need, essentially, right? So
that's awesome.
And it's just like other emergency management jobs, right? Like we get paged out. It's not on the old school pagers anymore. It's all on the cell phone, things like that. I carry a radio, things like that nature. But for the most part, they call me on my cell phone and tell me that there's something going on. Just a few minutes before I got on this call, we had a missing kid, right? And I had two people call me and they're like, hey, kid's been missing for 30 minutes. This is what we're going to do next. What can you support with? And I was like, oh, we can do XYZ. And by the time I finished the sentence of XYZ, they already had the kid found, so we didn't need to go out there.
Are you looking for bleeding control equipment? Impulse by Doberman Bleeding Control equipment is professional grade and built to save lives. From the Responder Pro Sling for first responders to wall-mounted kits with AEDs, compact packs for ushers and security, and the MCI resupply cache for standby teams, get your Impulse kits and training from impulsekits.com. RSET builds immersive virtual reality environments that mirror real-world spaces, giving military and first responders the power to train, analyze, and document with precision. Experience mission-ready simulation with RSET.com. Protect your school, venue, facility, or community with Doberman Emergency Management's specialized 3x3 approach. We do this with protecting life, property, and continuity of operations through advanced planning, training, and assessments. Learn more about our cutting-edge approach with world-class professionals in emergency services today at DobermanEMG.com. Emergency management is changing. Are you keeping up? The Readiness Lab takes it to the next level with exclusive tabletop exercises, live sessions, and real-world intel. Access the EOC as a TRL insider, train with us through NLEM, or rep the field with our EMTs. Yeah, that's a pun. We also deliver top-tier marketing and design for emergency services and public safety, outreach, product reviews, trade show support, sponsorships, and more. The Readiness Lab is the #1 emergency services podcast network, home of the NLEM certification, bold outreach, and everything pushing the field forward. Learn more at thereadinesslab.com. Like what you're hearing? Check out our show notes for more details, including the links to each of our sponsors. Okay, first of all, well, gosh, you just said so many great things. This is why I like you so much. So essentially, you have done a phenomenal job with integrating to their needs, understanding their perspective, and let's be real, there is a stigma. And law enforcement, you're right, they go out by themselves, they're tacticians, they want to get the job done. And a lot of times emergency managers, unfortunately, have presented themselves as not tip of the spear. They go very slow, they want to be methodical sometimes, and quite frankly, they're not well trained to understand law enforcement needs. And so the fact that you were like, what do you need? What do you want? I understand your culture. I want to get integrated all the way through that relationship building process where it sounds like they want to call you. They want you to be integrated. If I had to call law enforcement every time my kids were missing for 30 minutes, there would be a constant presence in my house. So the fact that you guys got the call and you found very quickly that child, that's also key, right? It speaks volumes to your sheriff's office as well. I remember going to, the Two-Star Conference, and Pasco County Sheriff's Office had a pretty big presence there. It's well known in the law enforcement community already for doing great stuff. And then you bring in your perspective, and now it's like, man, the office, the sheriff's office, is just like firing on multiple pistons now on doing good stuff. Why do you think that your office specifically, or the sheriff's office, has done so well on firing on so many pistons simultaneously?
So I think the big thing, right, like, is our sheriff is an amazing leader. And he's the type of person where he's like, hey, we're putting our citizens first, and we're going to make sure that we got to do whatever we got to do to make sure that they're safe at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize when you work for a sheriff's office, that's an elected official. So at the end of the day, he's the one that has to answer for whatever crisis is going on, essentially within the county region. It doesn't matter if it's in a city or if it's in a township or anything like that. He's the all at the end of the day. So he's got to answer for those type of things. So our sheriff has definitely changed the atmosphere when it comes to law enforcement, right? He's wanting to make sure that we can touch just about every portion of emergency response that we can. Awesome. So we're not fighting fires, but we're alongside our firefighters every step of the way, right? Like, we deal with missing kids because there could be a law enforcement aspect to it and a fire rescue aspect to it from search and rescue missions, right? So he has made it a point to try to bring in all the stakeholders at any given time to make sure that we have the best outcome for our county. And that's the big thing, is that we're just trying to make sure that we can resolve whatever the incident is as quick as possible, efficiently and safely.
That was a mic drop line, by the way. I don't know if you memorized it, if you practice that in a mirror or something, but that was perfect, but the other thing is, because I know you personally, I know that they have helped you to be able to get additional training and experience. I think you were in, was it Oklahoma for the tornado risk recovery? So you went to that, you go to other incidents. I've seen you meet up with friends, I think, as far as New York or other states and see how they're doing stuff. And so, man, talk about a leadership that wants their staff to succeed. And it sounds like you're never afraid to say, hey, I want to try things. And I think it kind of takes both ends of it. You have to have leadership who's willing, and you need an emergency manager who can be bold enough to say, I want to keep learning. And if either of those are missing, I think the emergency manager has missed the mark on what they can achieve.
Well, and I think the biggest thing, right, like you said, I have great friends, the FDNY IMT, I have the Virginia IMT, Ohio IMT. I've worked with all those guys, Carolina IMTs. Like those teams I've worked with throughout the years, and we've built a great relationship. And we are slowly starting to build that IMT presence within the Pasco Sheriff's Office too, right? Like I was just out in a meeting 5 minutes before I jumped on this call, talking about us building out the IMT process for the Sheriff's Office. Now, mainly what our IMT is going to be used for, right, is hurricane season, but we will also be using them during parades and other pre-planned events, and slowly migrating that stuff into what we do day in and day out. Because instead of us just having people that want to say, hey, I want to be on the team, some of these positions will be, hey, this is a part of your regular job duties. Once the light turns on, you come over here to emergency management, and this is your expectation. And we're going to continue to push out training. But then on the other side of the house, right, we allowed our 2 dogs to go to Texas, right? 4 teams, our 4-person team, 2 dogs went to Texas to help with the search and rescue recovery efforts.
Wow.
So those are the big things that our sheriff is really big on. Is he's like, hey, everybody always comes and helps us if we have a major impact storm. We want to give back and help other people as well.
Well, 2 things on that. First of all, big shout out to Ryan and Timothy with Bakersfield PD. Mm-hmm. They are tackling how to do recovery after they had a car ramming incident at a July 4th parade a couple years ago, where it was basically just a whole bunch of stupid. They blocked off the parade route. They told everybody, if your car's within the parade route, you cannot leave. Gave people plenty of time to leave. Some jerk had his car parked in there and was just annoyed by it. And so he rammed the crowd in order to leave. But that creates a long-term problem for the community of how do you trust, for future events, potentially an MCI event, a mass casualty. And so they have done a lot of great stuff to look at special events. And then we have pulled in additional ideas for them, and we just started working together. So a big shout out to them. But the other thing is, Pasco County and hurricanes are now well-versed because of last year, specifically with you being there. Can you walk us through what happened? You were pretty green to the sheriff's office, and then all of a sudden, boom. Explain to everybody who's listening in who might not have a geographical reference of that.
Yeah, so, I had just gotten back from a deployment to Oklahoma for tornadoes, and I probably want to say weeks later, we got our first tropical storm that came out. It was Tropical Storm Debbie. It was more of a rain event than anything else, but that rain event dropped so much water because we're on the Gulf side, right? So it dropped so much water. Pasco County's north of Tampa. It dropped so much water on us that we were just saturated, right? So we were like, okay, that's not bad. We had some water, we had some minor flooding, things along that nature. And then after Tropical Storm Debbie came, we had Hurricane Helene, right? And so if anybody remembers anything about Helene, it's the major impacts that it done inland, and the major impacts that it just dumped water, right? So those are the 2 things that happened to us. It dumped water on us, and we had major impacts inland. So personally, Pasco County did not have as many major impacts as far inland as the western North Carolina area did. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that hurricane went all the way into the western North Carolina area. So that's the mountains of North Carolina. There was no more water for the hurricane to go to, but it continued to dump rain and just take out wind destruction for them, right? So that was impactful for us because as that storm was passing through Florida, all those rivers that feed into Florida continued down into Pasco County, then further south.
No, interesting. Yeah.
Horrible flooding, right? So then I want to say, I think it was like a week later, don't quote me on that, but I think it was a week later, we had Hurricane Milton come, and Hurricane Milton rocked Pasco County, right? I just had a meeting about that the other day too, right? So we're used to having all of our damage done on our western side of our county because that's where the Gulf is. But we had damage across the whole entire county. We had our western side affected, our eastern side affected with flooding, major flooding that we had never seen in Dade City. So and Zephyr Hills, things like that, up on hills that were flooding. That's how much water was coming down off the river. We even had a deputy get critically injured in the middle of Hurricane Milton, right?
I didn't know that part. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had a deputy critically injured. He ended up rolling over in a vehicle. We had some passerbys save his life, right? And he still hasn't returned to work 100%, but he's living. So to God be the glory there.
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that it happened so quickly that we had no idea how to react to it, right? Thankfully, I went back to my training or went back to the places that I've deployed across the country to where I had the opportunity to bring in some of those tools and resources that I've known to work with to make a better outcome, right? So one of the first things I'd done for Hurricane Milton was when we knew it was coming out, I went to the sheriff and I said, hey, we need to request an IMT team to come down and support our mission because we are going to be way inundated and we don't have enough resources here to manage this on our own. So
yeah,
the sheriff's office, yeah, we're unique too, right? So we have the county EM, which they do great things, right? Like they support us as much as they can, but they're looking over the whole entire county as well as trying to support responder operations. So we have our own operations center here at the sheriff's office where the fire department and us get together and we run responder operations. But it was so busy with that we knew that we weren't going to be able to handle it ourselves. So we requested an IMT team to come down. We got a team from Ohio. The Ohio Butler County Incident Management team came down.
Oh, I tell you.
Yeah, we
Got the eye there, but whatever. Yeah.
The Butler County Incident Management team came down, and they were very supportive. They stayed with us almost 2 weeks. We had the Collier County Sheriff's Office here from South Florida. We had Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office, North Miami PD, Leon County Sheriff's Office. We had about 200 responders in our county. That's just the law enforcement side that was supporting the mission. And then we had another, 100 to 200 fire responders supporting the mission because we had so many rescue operations. We had so many downed trees. And the crazy part to it all is that wasn't a direct impact for us.
That's right, because it was hit on the other side, right? Yeah.
It wasn't a little impact.
I mean, but when you're so saturated with water all the time already, but before those incidents, and then that comes through, it's almost like game over. I have a great friend who lives in Tampa, and his home is 20 feet below sea level. And I remember years prior when it looked like there was going to be a direct hit in Tampa, he decided not to leave because he's a filmmaker and he thought it'd be cool. And all of a sudden he was like, oh, this was a really poor idea. And you're like, yeah, no joke, you know? And for this one, he did end up leaving. But it just showed just the amount of water that can drop on from a hurricane. I remember Hurricane Harvey, was like that in Texas. It was just, water everywhere. I'm so glad one of your sheriffs, even though they're critically injured, that they're looks like they're in recovery. So that's great news. But a lot of responders end up getting hurt just because of going through the water to save people, and they get sick because they get a cut in their leg. And, we've watched responders over that. So all that stuff.
We've changed our whole entire process for that too, right? Like
really
not putting responders in the water unless they have the right PPE on. We're not putting responders in the water. Like I just ordered life jackets, right? So if we have strategic specialty teams that do water rescue, if they're not, if they don't have a life jacket on, they can't get in the water.
That's awesome. How do you have the buy-in to? You have done so many things, and I do want to talk about challenges because you do sound like you've done everything right, but it can't be all easy all day, right? But for getting the life jackets, for changing policy, for getting that buy-in for the officers, quite frankly, you could probably teach a master class in doing that because that is not how it goes typically. There's usually a lot of pushback, and even if there is, you're pretty clever on not making it sound like there is. But how how have you implemented those changes so successfully?
So I tell people that I hate starting new EM programs, but I feel like that's where I end up.
We've done that so many times.
Yeah, I've done it so many times now that it's just sometimes those things happen. But the buy-in comes from them trusting you, right? That's the main thing but the trust for them is showing them that you know what you're talking about, or showing them how this perspective is going to look and how it's going to work. That's where the
Look at work. Yeah.
So the IMT example, right? So bringing in that Ohio IMT, I was in the sheriff's office. I said, "Sir, we need this to track resources. We need this to manage our incident." I said, because we've had 2 storms back to back, and our people are tired, and we can plan as much as we can plan, but once it hits, it's going to hit, and I need somebody to help me manage all these resources. And I could send you some pictures. Like our operations center is packed full of people. I mean, it looks just like an EOC with all the people that we have in here. And he said, "Okay, if you feel like that's what you need, we'll do it." Right. So we brought these guys in. They were phenomenal. I'd never met them before. Right. I specifically asked for a law enforcement IMT team to come down, which is rare. Right. There's not a lot of law enforcement IMT teams throughout the country. And they came down, and there was 4 cops, and I think the rest were firefighters, but they rocked it, right? Like, they had a great product. They had a great IEP. They rocked it. And that's where the buy-in started, right? So we saw that. They were like, okay, maybe we need to have our own IMT that's fully trained that we can help manage these things with. And so that's how that buy-in started. And then with the deputy that got critically injured, there were some things that we could have done different, right? Like, nothing that was wrong. It's just some things that we had to start focusing on, leaning in on more.
Sure.
And one of those things was, hey, if anybody's near water that's up to their knees, they need to be in a life jacket.
Bingo.
Simple as that, right? It's a safety thing. If one of those guys would have got their head hit or anything like that, they tripped and fell, at least we know that life jacking can bring them back up to the surface and hopefully save their life. So, we transitioned from that to, hey, we're not wearing bulletproof vests when we're doing water rescues. There's no need to, right? Like, and that's a hard push, right? That's a strategic plan that we had to figure out, what are we going to do to make sure our deputies are safe, but at the same time be able to save lives without them getting hurt.
Yeah. And I'm just going to take a mental note here, 2109. I might edit that part out only because I don't want somebody to find out that you're not wearing a vest. But just as I'll make it look good. But I mean, you're talking about incredible resource management and looking at incidents, and oh my gosh, the amount of after actions where people say like, "Hey, do this or do that," and nothing changes is really frustrating. I think it's really frustrating for the field. But I do think what you're saying, it ultimately comes down to trust. I've heard plenty of emergency managers do the doomsday prepper approach, and that doesn't work. Especially when somebody's looking at budgets and protocol, and if they're elected officials, whether they're politicians, sheriffs, or otherwise, how it looks is important, and any emergency manager who pushes back on it just doesn't get it, to be honest. And does it work? How does it look, and does it work? And if you can find out the wins in both of those spaces, you're going to make a lot of people happy. Now, a lot of people do have to bite the bullet every once in a while and say, it's not going to look good, but it's going to save lives. You have to talk about that as well. So there's a balance. Not every day is easy, though. And so for those who are listening to you, like, man, like, this guy's just rocking it. I also know that you have to try really hard in your job. Now, you're great at complimenting people and putting a smile on your face when you might be frustrated. And so you're able to keep it cool when I haven't seen other people have that same talent. But for you, what are some of the challenges in your job that somebody else can say, hey, I'm experiencing that too? And more importantly, probably, how have you overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would probably be for that is I'm a Christian first off, right? Like, so I try and to do everything like Christ would do. And then the challenge part comes into play where I'm not a sworn law enforcement officer, right? And sometimes that's the challenge that I have where I have to explain myself a little bit more, or explain how it's strategically smart or tactically smart to do it this way. Again, it goes back to showing people that I can do it rather than saying, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is why we're doing it. I'm the king of getting resources when it comes to those type of things, right? Like anything from we're on a SWAT hit and they need to disconnect somebody's phone and they need to do it quickly because there's a life safety incident, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I've made it my job and my passion to have those connections to the national partners for cell phone companies. So all it takes is 1 second for us to get that phone disconnected, rather than having to take 30 minutes to figure out who we need to call, things like that. So it's not all like smiles and sunshines, right? Like we have our arguments, but they're not arguments of, hey, I hate you or anything like this. It's arguments of, hey, this is the way we need to do it because of X.
Yes.
And so that's the hard part, right? Like it looks really smooth on the outside, but I can tell you it's not always smooth. There's things, and there's still a shift that's still being made, right? So ICS is not a heavy law enforcement thing, right? The Incident Management Team Association is working really hard to make a law enforcement ICS model so that they can understand it more. But the good thing about ICS is it can expand and it can shrink down really, really small and really quickly. But again, you go back to that lone officer out there. He is the incident commander. He is the PIO. He is the finance section. He's doing all that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the shift comes in to say, hey, we've now expanded on this. You don't have to take all these burdens. We're going to bring in 5 other people that can support you, right? That's the hard part, right? Is just trying to make that shift of we're here to support you, and it's not always going to be easy, and it's not going to look pretty, but we're here to support you.
Yeah, I think for us who like to be stimulated doing multiple different things simultaneously, that can be a really hard pushback. But I think I think when we want to be experts in what we're doing, I think we have to be able to be willing to take things off of our plate so that other people can support us. And quite frankly, law enforcement has a really tough mission, especially now with media and everything else going on out there. And the more that somebody can take off the law enforcement's plate, that officer's plate or that sheriff's plate, that they can do their job more effectively, that is where we have less and less problems because they're not distracted by 15 things at once. So I think that's a good call out. I'm a big words guy. I think the word argument gets misused a lot. I think you used it appropriately. I'm willing to go through the mud with somebody in order for us to kind of, go through that tough process to figure out what's best. And I think, that argument process really just does mean like a discussion, even a passionate discussion about finding out what's best. Funny enough, I saw on LinkedIn just yesterday, like multiple posts, by the way, it like really drove me nuts. They kept on saying we don't use man-made disasters anymore, but they kept on separating man-made. Man-made is not 2 words. It's a single word. It's either man-made as a single word or with a hyphen. So their whole thing was there's no such thing as man-made, or we shouldn't use man-made anymore. And I was like, I don't think you've looked at a dictionary recently. We're not saying an individual man-made. We're saying humankind.
Yeah.
And it's like these kinds of things that when we go to stakeholders, we need to speak their language. And that, again, I've been on this kick forever, but I try to bring it up often because emergency managers need to both speak the language of the agency that they're working with, and they also need to start getting away from like cute words and cute phrases that don't mean anything to anybody outside of emergency management.
Yep.
And so I don't know, just random tangent there, but like the reality is, I'm looking at the time here, and I can't compliment you enough. I've seen all the really cool things you've been doing down there, and quite frankly, like I said earlier, you could give a master class on how to do this for people because they miss the mark quite often, and you're able to get things done. And I want to talk to people who get things done. And so again, recognizing the time and with that compliment, if you're going to give advice to anybody in this field, especially those who are either law enforcement officers who would need to work with emergency managers who might be listening in, or the emergency manager who wants to work with law enforcement, what would your advice be?
My advice would most likely be, hey, trust the process, right? And you got to trust the process in showing them what you can give them and how you can help them. And don't push it. Don't push it. Just show up, do your job, go home. I tell people all the time, don't try to be the police. Don't try to be something you're not. Be the person that you can be for that person, and support them as much as you can. And then if you're the law enforcement side of the house and you're like, man, I really wish that I could figure out how to get more in tune with my emergency manager, go visit with them, go talk to them. They may not know everything that you need them to know, but at least try to bring them in so that they can understand your lifestyle and what it looks like to be a law enforcement officer. And then it goes back to the emergency manager too, right? Go do a ride time, go do a ride along, because the more that you see the operational side of the house is the more you'll understand emergency management operations.
I love that. Again, the mic drops. As you were saying that, I thought of this quote that I saw the other day, and I just pulled it up. This is by Gordon B. Hinckley. And as you and I are both Christians, I think this plays into both those worlds. Again, emergency manager, Christian, good person. If you do these 6 things, you will be successful. And I think you're a great example of all these things. Be grateful, be smart, be clean, be true, be humble, be prayerful. The 6 B's. And, that was obviously pulling from New Testament scripture. But if you can focus on those 6 B's, then your life gets better. And again, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing insights. Hopefully there's no big hurricanes for you this year, but we're now August 22nd, and we know August 22nd to November 1st, things happen. So
yeah, it's definitely lighten up, but I appreciate you bringing me on and let me talk and just talk a little bit about what I do.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. And everybody, if you like this episode, again, shamelessly like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.
See ya.